Shout out to the Hype Magazine.
And we right here with the Hype Magazine. You already know what it is.
Hey, what's good, everybody? Welcome to the live session with the Hype Magazine. I am your editor-in-chief, Dr. Jerry Doby, and today, I have an amazing opportunity to speak with DJ Khalil. He is been at the forefront of shaping the sound of modern hip hop and R&B for more than 2 decades. He's a 5-time Grammy Award-winning producer and a 20-time nominee. Is that a Guinness Book record? I wonder. You know, Khalil's work has graced tracks by everyone from Eminem and Jay-Z to Anderson .Paak and A$AP Rocky. From his roots in the underground with Self-Scientific to his evolution under the wing of Dr. Dre at Aftermath. Khalil's story is one of innovation, collaboration, and community as he prepares to mentor the next wave of creators at the Audio Effects series in Inglewood coming up. Obviously, we're catching up with him to talk legacy, mentorship, and what's next for music, man. Appreciate you being here, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. I love it. So I did my little intro, but I'm going to just get you to be reflective real quick. From the inside looking out, how do you see DJ Khalil?
Man, I mean, just a person that was curious from the jump, started off DJing. That's kind of like where my love grew for production. You know, all my heroes from Dr. Dre to DJ Premier to Pete Rock were, you know, like they're kind of the standard when I was coming up, even Molly Mall, you know what I mean? So I used to get tapes from New York from my dad used to coach at Compton College and all his players were from New York. So
Okay.
they used to get tapes from, you know, back home of Chuck Chill Out, Mr. Magic. So that's kind of like how I got into hip hop and my love for it. So
Right.
that turned into DJing, you know, going into DJing, and then that turned into like, you know, my parents getting me like a SK1 Casio
Wow.
sampler, have 4 second, you know, sampling time. And you know, I started making my own little beat tapes off of that, just making loops and all that kind of stuff. And that was my intro. And then I met a friend in 10th grade, and he had the same passion as I did. You know, he was actually more passionate than I was. So he had his own studio, and he, you know, so that's where it all started. And then, you know, fast forward until now, you know, I mean, you know, we started like my own group, Self Scientific, and we started our own label, probably right after college, and you know, that kind of spawned into a career. You know what I mean? Just us putting out our first full album in 2001, and then that kind of like launched me as a producer, and you know, and people started calling me for, you know, for production, and that kind of led me to Dr. Dre, and then Dr. Dre led me to everywhere, you know what I mean? From Eminem to Kendrick to 50 to Jay-Z, you know, and that's kind of like, you know, it's just continued on for 20 plus years. So
Wow. Now, do you remember, was there a benchmark moment when music just reached out and said, you belong to me?
yeah, there's a guy named DJ Reg who he mentored like Battle Cat, a bunch of like legendary producers and DJs out here. He's DJ my dad's parties, and when he was setting up one day, you know, from one of my dad's parties, I was so curious. I was just hanging around his whole, you know, setup, and he was like, "Man," he's like, "Do you want to, you know, hop on the tables real quick?" And I was like, "Oh man, I would love to."
Uh,
And he let me go through his crates. I pulled out "Bring the Noise" by Public Enemy, and he let me, you know, just like get on the turntables and play with the mixer. He let me do it for like 15, 20 minutes. And that was kind of like I was like, I'm in love. That like this is what I want to do.
okay.
Literally. That was the moment where I was like, this is exactly what I want to do. And I see why people, you know what I mean? Like my heroes are doing this. It's there's nothing like it. And music is just my passion, you know. So that was kind of like a benchmark kind of moment for me.
Got dropped right into the fire, huh? Like
Yeah.
tables. let's get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, so you started your journey in the underground with Self Scientific. How did that early foundation shape your approach to production today, though?
Man, it was everything because it was just kind of like my first introduction into like doing a full album, which, you know, we had our, we were putting out our own 12 inches, all that kind of stuff. So I kind of like we started making a name for us, we started making a name for ourselves at one point, and then we dug in on the album, and that took months to do, but it just showed me like, I started incorporating live musicians and sampling, you know what I mean? I really branched out, got into prog rock and all these different genres, and it kind of shaped who I was as a producer. Even to this day, like everything that I do is like, man, it really has an element of self-scientific to it. You know what I mean? So, Chace Infinite, who's my best friend, and he's the MC of Self Scientific. We're still best friends to this day. And he's the first artist I really had the pleasure to work with. You know what I mean? And he was already a seasoned MC at that point, so it kind of really helped me. It shaped me into like recording records, understanding how song structure is, all that kind of stuff. So, it was kind of really my education, and to and then you graduate and then you start working with other artists, you know what I mean? So it kind of built the steps to getting to that point where I can work with other artists and understand how to produce for other people,
Okay.
all that kind of stuff. So Soul Scientific played a major role in my career.
Now, are you from the West Coast?
Yeah, from
Okay.
LA.
Okay. So maybe you spent some time at Good Life, huh? At the Good Life
Oh
Cafe.
yeah,
Yeah,
of
Leimert
course.
Park. Okay, coming from the
Oh yeah,
okay, with my girl Medusa,
yeah.
Micah Nine, and all those
Oh
cats.
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Legends.
legend.
Yes.
Yeah, still
Of course.
rocking it.
Freestyle Fellowship. Yep. All them.
Michael,
Yep.
Freestyle Fellowship. Yeah, Mike is doing that jazzy kind of thing going on right now. He's
Yeah.
got with the live man and
Way ahead of their time. Way ahead of their
way,
time, man.
way ahead.
Way ahead.
And Medusa was what? She was the first MC at Good Life to use a live band. And
Okay, I didn't know. That's crazy. But yeah, shout out to Medusa. Medusa's another legend, man. She's held it down for years, man. She's a staple out here. So
over 30 years, yeah, yeah, she's
yeah,
rocking it.
yeah.
I've known her for
Yeah.
20 plus, and
Wow.
she was getting it in, you know what I mean? Anyway,
Yeah. Man.
we're here to talk about you. So you caught Dr. Dre's ear early in your career, which
Hmm.
led to a major turning point, obviously. What was the most
Yeah.
valuable lesson do you feel you learned during your time at Aftermath?
There's so many. I mean, he's given me so many jewels over the years, but I would say he really taught me about songs. He told me we're in the song business, and he's like the production, all that stuff is important, but he's like, if you look at my career, you look at the songs and the songs that he's been a part of.
Right,
And he works with the best songwriters from the DOC to Snoop to, you know what I mean? Like
right.
to some of the best to Eminem, now Kendrick, you know what I mean? So he surrounds himself with the best writers, you know what I mean? And I think that's one thing that I picked up because I was so production focused and I was so enamored with hearing these sounds and how people approach production that I never approached music that way. I didn't think about songs first, you know what I mean? So that was like a major lesson that he taught me over my time over there because I feel like it's like going to grad school. You know what I mean? You're getting
No
your
doubt.
PhD.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
I've established myself as a producer, but it was kind of like going through this other part of my career and studying under the great Dr. Dre and being around other great producers to understand like, okay, what I was doing was great, but there's other levels to this, you know what I mean? And that was really what I learned under like his tutelage.
Okay, okay. So with production credits ranging from Drake to Eminem to Anderson Paak, how do you approach adapting your sound to fit each artist while maintaining your creative identity?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I think I just create, I don't think I'm really tailor making, like each situation is different. By the time Anderson's a good example because I had really got my production chops up working with like Aloe Black and like working in R&B. And by the time I worked with Anderson, I had a process down just for that.
Mm,
And meet in a unique talent like him who he likes to drum and sing, when we did Hard Don't Stand a Chance, that's exactly how we did it. I had V drums. I didn't even have a drum set. I had V drums. I set that up. I set a mic up and he freestyled the whole thing while we had musicians jamming with him. And we did it. It was like a 20-minute jam session. And that song came out of that jam session, you know what I mean? But not everybody, it's like, understanding the artists that you're working with and understanding what makes them tick and how to get the best out of them. And I think like that was the main thing of working with all these different artists is like what makes them tick and how do you get them inspired to write a song or finish a song? And so that's like one example, that really worked. But like working with like someone like Aloe Black, you got to go through 30 songs, you know what I mean, to get to one great one, you know what I mean? Because he's so prolific and he's a machine when it comes to songwriting and you got to sift through everything to see what you have and you build trust over that time and I think that's what we were able to do. So each artist is different. Sometimes you just got to give them beats and they just know what to do with it. You know what I mean? So
I'm
um
always amazed at the creativeness. I mean, sitting down at a domino table, somebody says something fly, and all of a sudden you got a hook, and then you got a song, and then
yeah.
so it's crazy,
Yeah. Yeah,
man.
it's incredible.
Oh, excuse me, man.
Bless you.
It's summertime in Kansas City, and the pollen is flying crazy. So y'all,
Yeah.
I apologize. I apologize,
No,
man.
no,
So
no, it's
stepping
all
into the
good.
day, man. So you're stepping into a mentorship role at this year's Audio Effect series.
Yeah.
What inspired you to get involved, and what do you hope mentees will walk away with?
Yeah, I mean, mentorship is a big part of just my career in general. I've worked with the what was the Thelonious Monk Institute of Jazz. Now it's called the Herbie Hancock Institute of Jazz. They run out of UCLA.
Okay.
And the program director, Dan Seif, who kind of runs the whole thing, he's a good friend of mine and he's played on a lot of my records. I've been mentoring at high schools for years, like over 20 years, and mentoring young producers, musicians for as long as I can remember. You know what I mean? And my parents were really big on mentorship. I watched them mentor everybody, from basketball players to, my mom starting, running Yes to Jobs, which was out of A&M Records, which was built on giving internships to black and brown, what I mean, kids that wanted to get in the music business, entertainment business. So, it's kind of like a part of my DNA is to give back.
Mm.
And so when Serato called me, it was like a no-brainer. This is like what I kind of live for is just to mentor and to meet young talent. I mean, because they don't really know. I mean, it's changed. The business is changing so much, so it's like they're entering at a whole new, a completely different time. So like even I'm learning from them just as much as they're learning from me, honestly. But I definitely give them my expertise on in terms of, what I've learned up to this point, but like technology, all these things have changed so much over the years. So it's kind of like we're all kind of sharing, you know what I mean? But I think there's a certain professionalism and things that you have to know to go into these rooms with people and understand the business side of things and understanding that you're gonna take a lot of losses. You're gonna get a lot of doors shut in your face, and you gotta develop thick skin to kind of like to keep going. And I think like once they kind of get through that, then they have the building blocks to having like a successful career.
Really like that you're touching on the reality check and
Hmm.
attitude adjustment about dealing in the realities of the business part of the
Yep.
business. I've heard the horror stories. Yeah, you wrote that song 2 years ago, but guess what? You didn't get paid for it for 6 or 7 years. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or you didn't get paid at all. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I'm just like, I'm glad I don't make music. I'm glad I'm not an artist because I could see myself in and out of negative situations constantly. Like, bro, the
Yeah.
paperwork says,
Yep.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so really, really hot topic right now is the black and brown music, community and what's going on in LA. I love what like our girl Kool-Aid is doing with the Latin community. She was
Mhm.
in Power 106, and that's how Latin music started, getting a break, Latin hip hop in
That's
LA.
right. That's
So
right.
she's doing some amazing things. So what does it mean for you to mentor within a program that's rooted in empowering Black and Brown creatives in South LA?
I mean, it's important. I mean, it's important to know that like I come from the same environment you come from, you know what I mean? And that I was able to navigate this business and become successful and to make a career out of it. I think that's really important for them just to see that
Right.
and to hear from somebody, like a DJ Dahi or, Iman Omari or, all these guys that are super creative and very successful in their fields. And like they've been able to do like incredible things, win Grammys, all this other, you know what I mean? So when they see people like them doing, having success and being able to advance their careers, over 20 plus years, and they get to see it firsthand, they get to hear it firsthand from us. And I think we, as people that have navigated it, we have to hand it, we got to give it back. We got to give it back to our community and people that look like us and empower them because, we, as you see, we, with the music business, you hear about streaming, you hear about all these things and how little money there is and how much there these huge corporations are making a lot of money off of our culture. You know what I mean? And we have to take control of our culture at some point. And I think it's not even us; it's these kids that we're mentoring that are going to have to understand what they're getting into and understand their power creatively is what drives the business. They have to understand that. It's not the other way around. Our creativity is what drives this business, period. Hip hop is in every genre of music from country to, K-pop to whatever. What any genre you think of, it's rooted in hip hop and that comes from us. So they need to understand that we hold the power in terms of in terms of what we create and what our ownership is. So hopefully, when they break out and do these things and have their 20-year careers, they'll be able to benefit more than we have, to be honest.
You know, with the technology situation, we won't even say the word AI so much, but just
Mhm.
technology, period, being able to stream. We're doing this interview through Zoom and from two different parts of the country. Musicians are able to do virtual, and during the pandemic, we had virtual concerts and
Right.
this, that, and the
Mhm.
third. So the audio effect series kind of blends music, tech,
Mhm.
fashion, through partnerships with Serato, the title sponsor, TEC
Yeah.
Leimert, and Undefeated. Why do you think these types of cross-industry collaborations are so important now?
I mean, I think it goes back to culture. It's all about culture. You know what I mean? Like all these, even when you talk about the pandemic and you saw what D Nice was able to do, you saw what versus what you know what I mean? Like these things dominated, culture dominates, you know what I mean? I think like all these different brands and stuff want to be a part of culture. They want to be a part of the creative community moving forward. And I think that's why you're having this synergy with all these different companies that come from all these different aspects. You know what I mean? I think that like the culture is what brings all this together. And I think like it starts with us. It starts with the black and brown community. And I think we're the innovators. When it comes down to like people didn't know that the 808 drum machine was going to be used the way it was. You know what I mean? We took that and innovated it, made a whole genre of music out of that.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like when these companies tap into the communities and we're able to literally create stuff out of nothing. You know what I mean? I think it's to their benefit. You know what I mean? It's like it's a good I think it's a good thing. It's a good thing that these companies want to tap in and that they're creating these opportunities for young creators. So
I dig it. I dig it. Now, as someone who's seen the evolution of music tech firsthand,
mhm.
how can today's producers like best utilize software like Serato to elevate their sound?
Man, I mean, you have, I mean, now it's like the software is just, I mean, especially Serato, they kind of like, to me, made like probably one of the best samplers, in terms of like plugins and VSTs. One of the best samplers ever created was just Serato sample, which kind of was a game changer because they've always been a game changer with pitch and time and being able to time stretch and all that kind of stuff. They were innovators in that realm. But like Serato sample, Serato Studio, being able to put detect the key and the tempo and to be able to chop samples and put it in time, it's like it definitely advanced everyone's productivity, you know what I mean, in terms of being creative every day. And I feel like, now you have the stem separation where I could take a vocal from any record. I can take the bass line from any record and then I can reprogram it or do whatever, you know what I mean? So it gives you way more freedom in terms of what you can do. And I feel like now we have all these different, these different choices and things that we can do, like when we sit down to create. It's almost really overwhelming, you know what I mean?
I
But
was gonna say, man,
it's
so
over.
many choices. That's like sending me into a candy store with gourmet jelly beans and like pick your combination.
Exactly.
I'm like, bro,
Crazy. It's crazy, man. So it's like, before but Serato, they kind of been at the head, they've been leading to me the charge in terms of like, what it means to be in hip hop and the sample and the chop and all that kind of stuff. They really take it back to, it's rooted in the foundation of hip hop, which is what I love about
okay,
Serato.
okay. Mental health, imposter syndrome, all those things are realities within the creative space, especially in the music space.
Mhm.
Um, and it can be really isolating for new talent. How can mentorship help foster sustainable, community-centered careers for young creatives?
Hmm. Uh, I kind of got, well, okay, the last part of what you're saying. I mean, I got the imposter syndrome and all that stuff. The mental health part, what were you saying? Like, what was
Well,
the last?
imposter syndrome is kind of is part of the mental health spectrum in that it's
Yeah.
a self-doubt kind
Yeah.
of situation. So how does, you know, mentorship help foster sustainable
Got you.
community centered? Yeah, you see what I'm saying now?
Got you. Yeah,
Okay.
I got you. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, it's important. I think when you're a young creative and you meet someone or someone who's a professional and they've been through the same struggle you've been through, and they can share that experience with you, that's something you can apply and you're like, oh, okay, so I can be myself. I can be this way. Okay, he still has self-doubt. I mean, I have that all the time, still to this day. You know what
Right.
I mean? As an aging producer, as a person that's in a young, genre, and to be a part of just music where, they usher the old out and it's in with the new. I feel like these kids need to meet, people that are professionals that have had success, that are about the work and are, and develop and great, developing relationships and having the respect and working with, some of the greats. It's great to be able to ask questions and to get that experience and understand what a person like me, what I've been through just to get to this point. And it was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. You know what I mean? And I think they need to understand that at the early stages of what they're doing and that it's not easy.
Mm,
You know what I mean? And there's a lot of soul searching and there's a lot of self-work that you have to do. I went to therapy for 10 years. You know what I mean? I needed music just to get through it. And it's just funny how music also, I got compensated for what I did, but I went through a lot of pain just to, you know what I mean? Just to have my career. So it wasn't like, oh, I just made beats and then I made money. It was like there's a reason why I was making music.
uh,
And it's like music actually, you know what I mean? It's therapeutic. And then I also was able to reap the benefits from it because, the music, people felt it. You know what I mean? So that's a big part of it. So I
Man,
think, kids need to understand that it's not just a function of making money or making a living. Sometimes you actually need music, to get through life. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And
that
your
part,
therapy.
that part, you know. Um, I know your time is precious, so I just got a couple more questions. Um,
Oh.
from major label placements to underground loyalty,
Mhm.
how do you define success now versus when you were first starting out? You talked about growth and how you
Yeah.
evolved and analyzed differently, so that's the follow-up.
Yeah. I think, you know, the underground started everything. That was the start of everything. And I think like it's still a big part of me because I like me and Chace and our group Self Scientific, we still work. It's kind of like, it's kind of like my playground, and I have like complete freedom of what I want to do with my group. We're not signing anybody, we don't have to worry about industry, anything. It's strictly based off of our freedom and what we want to say and what we want to put out there, which is, that's not the norm in today's, music industry. But I think having that, gives me the freedom to, I can put that into what I'm doing for who, any artist that I'm trying to work with, whether it's Kendrick or whatever. It's like, it's like my testing ground for creativity, and I'm able to like recharge what I identify with. So we always keep that identity. Even Chace, I mean Chace like manages, ASAP Rocky and Benny the Butcher and all these, so he's on the the real like industry side. He's dealing with corporations. It's not always creative, but we have our thing just because we know that that's where our power lies. That's where our I don't know, it all stems from that. So we kind of apply all that and that kind of entrepreneurial like spirit like through everything that we do. And I think that's kind of like what's kept us grounded, as I'm working with big artists. It's always a part of it. It's in the DNA I do.
Okay. Looking ahead, what excites you the most about the future of production, and what role do you see yourself playing in shaping it?
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, this is a time where when we talked about Serato and just all these, I feel like every week there's a new thing. It's like there's this new stem separator. Now there's AI and there's these companies popping up, and then that's moving super fast. You know what I mean? But these are all tools to help you become create, to be more creative. I think like what we don't really understand is that sometimes too many choices stifles your creativity.
Mm,
And I think like there's a reason why, some people just like the SP12, and that's their thing, and that's their best way to express. Just because you have all these tools doesn't mean it doesn't make for better music. I'll say that.
right.
It's cool that you can do it. It's cool that you have all these things. It's like even when you think of like George Lucas and his first Star Wars movies, the
Uh,
first trilogy. And then when he did the prequels, he had all the technology to make, all the CGI he wanted to do. That's really what he wanted to do on the first films, but he was limited. But him being limited made for better movies. The prequels weren't better movies than the originals. You know what I mean? And we pretty much anyone who's a Star Wars fan probably agrees with that.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So because you have all this technology doesn't mean you're going to make better content or better music. But it is cool that you can use it and apply it to what you do. And I think right now it's just like we're kind of going through and seeing what really works. At least for me, I'm going through and seeing like this actually fits in what I'm doing in my expression. Maybe not everything, but at least I'm trying things just to see what works. And for AI and all these things that are popping up, I don't know what that's going to mean for these kids because they're gonna look at it completely different than how we did, you know, just how music is made. That might be different forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The person studying for 20 years on piano, maybe is that done or is that, you know what I mean? Like I don't know where that's leading. You know what I mean? It's cool that we're at this point, but then it's also kind of scary because you don't know what that means for the arts, you know, for
Yeah.
what we consider, you know, the artistic community and someone really being able to express themselves on their instrument or whatever they're doing. So,
Mm.
you know, you don't want to rely on something, a computer or whatever, to generate that for you. You want to be able to express yourself, right? So it's about expression. So, you know, I think it's in a very unique place. You know, I'm not going to say it's bad or good. I think it's good. There's some good aspects, and I think there's some aspects that are like, wow, you know, like it
Just a
can
new
change
adventure.
everything.
It's just a
Yeah,
new adventure in the fabric of music.
exactly.
I asked you that question because I had just done a piece with this Grammy award-winning violinist, and we were talking
Mm,
about AI in classical music, in concert music, and
right.
he had a little more trepidation, but he's saying,
Hmm.
you know, it's a reality. But will people come to like major concerts that are driven by AI-backed soundscapes and music beds, as opposed to watching the guy on the kettle drum and watching the
Right.
guy, you know? So we had that discussion. So I'm really, you got the hip hop and the R&B realm. He pulled in from the classical. So it's really interesting to see that your thoughts were similar to his
Yeah.
thoughts. So in the creative community, especially at you fellas at the high, not fellas, I'm sorry, you people
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
high level of creativity are having similar you know, thought patterns.
Yeah.
Is there anything you wanted to cover, DJ Khalil Abdul Rahman, that I may have?
I mean, no, I think we covered a lot of great stuff. I mean, a lot of stuff that, you know, that I like to talk about, and it's just, you know, I definitely, the mentor side of it is the main reason why I'm doing this, you know, and I want to, you know, help the next generation of people just figure it out and figure it out for themselves. You know what I mean? Because they have to realize that music is, it is a tool to make money and all that, but it's a tool for expression, and people need that more than ever. You know what I mean? And like, and what you have inside of you actually does matter. It really matters, and it could change the world. You know, the powers in the creativity, and that's really like what I've been preaching to every young creative, is that, you know, what you have inside of you could literally change everything. So, you know, the more you do it, the more chances you have of changing stuff. So yeah.
DJ Khalil Abdul Rahman, I appreciate you, Shukran Allah, for coming through and spending time with us, imparting some gems. Would love to keep in touch with you as a subject
Yes,
matter expert, if you don't mind. And
love to.
okay, I appreciate you. And that's it for this live session.
All right, man. Well, yeah, if you need anything else, please let me know.
Will do. I appreciate
All
you.
right.
All right, everybody,
Thank you.
we out.
As an artist, we should reflect the time.
Why you so talented?
Cause I'm black.
Why you so amazing?
Cause I'm black.
Really important that we build characters so that people understand their story matters.
2 Chainz and I both are just really into good food.
And when you know you are royalty, you will only aim in life to be royalty.
We're doing it right now. I don't give a damn what they say about me. Yes, I called your ass out. I know I shouldn't be saying this kind of.
Shout out the Hype Magazine Network.
Shout out to the Hype Magazine Network.